Hi angels, welcome to another resin flowers preservation. So the mold I got from Amazon, I'll leave the link down in the description box down below. I didn't dry or preserve any of these flowers. The orange ones I got from Etsy's, the white ones in the corners, those are from Amazon, and the palm leaf, this one right here, I got from Amazon as well. So I cut it to the size of the mold so that it would fit in there correctly. As you can see, I already poured down some resin. Now I'm just pouring down my flowers. I'm dipping some of the roses in the resin, because obviously the roses, it's gonna have a ton of bubbles in there. Just to avoid bubbles, you just put it in the resin first before you put it into the mold. That's what I learned. That's the best trick, honestly. So that's what I'm doing for the rest of my flowers. Everything is going into the resin before it goes into the mold. Not every one of them, but majority of them I try to do that. And this video is very sped up. It seems like if I'm moving too quickly, but this was a process setting up all of the flowers how I wanted everything to be. So I had to be fast because the resin, I was afraid the resin would start to cure because I was taking way too long trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So after the first layer dried, this layer that I'm pouring in is the second layer. So each layer that I'm going to be pouring in, I have to let dry for a full 24 hours. And every time that I pour in there a new layer of resin, I always make sure to put some on the rose. Again, just keep filling it up to avoid bubbles and anything like that. And it honestly started looking good. Looks very, very nice. And you can see some of the bubbles in there are just popping on their own. Sometimes you just have to be poking at it so that it can pop. And I know in the beginning of the video I was using my lighter. That's a very, very bad idea because I was burning some of the white flowers. So what I end up doing for the rest of this was to spray a little bit of some 99% ibuprofen alcohol. So anything that you see me spraying, that's just what's in the bottle. So some resin got stuck underneath the first layer of resin. So I was still seeing that maybe if I was poking at it, the bubbles would rise. And there was a ton of bubbles in those flowers right there. I know that I'm not showing you guys a good angle, but yeah, that's a better view. But I'm trying to make sure that there's no bubbles that's trapped underneath anything. And this right here is the third layer of resin that I'm just pouring it on in there. After this layer, because you can clearly see that I'm working my way up into the roses, so there was some bubbles at the sides after I finished. So I was just watching it and then just popping it every time that I see it rose up, and that was perfect because when I was doing the rest of the layers there was no giant bubbles. But you can see with these two flowers right here that the bubbles got trapped underneath the layer before it. So unfortunately I wasn't able to get that up. But with this little bubble right here, I was just poking at it with my stick, and eventually I was able to get it to pop. And then for the rest of the little tiny bubbles that weren't going away, I just went over it, just sprayed a little alcohol, and that was good to go. And there was a bubble that was trapped right here. I was trying to get it, but ended up not working out. And for the little dry orange that I put at the side, a ton of bubbles are underneath it or inside of it. You can obviously see it. And this is when I'm spraying a little bit of some alcohol. And yeah, I'm just going to let this layer dry as well. But the orange, it has way too much bubbles. I'm going to try to figure out how to hide that in some type of way. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, maybe I won't. And now I'm adding in another layer of resin. I don't know what number this is. But yeah, just add it in there. And you can see that I'm doing it in very, very small amounts of resin. I am not doing a lot. I'm just doing a little bit. I don't know what exact amount it is, but I'm just pouring a little bit in there so that I can work my way up. Not a lot. You just need a little bit. And you can see the flowers right there that I burned. And there's something inside of the resin, so I just took it out because obviously I don't want nothing to be curing in there that should not be curing. But yeah, just let this layer dry. Okay, let me do this voiceover before my neighbors start blasting their TVs again. So now I'm just pouring in. I don't even know what layer this is, but As you can see, I poured in way more than I usually do because I was mixing something else up, and then I had all of this resin left over. So I decided to just pour it into one mold, and that is how it's looking. So I'm just watching it, pressing down on the flowers so that the bubbles can rise up so that I can just pop it, or they can just pop on their own. I'm going to be spraying some 99% ibuprofen alcohol instead of using my lighter, because I feel like if that works best, and I won't be burning the flowers because obviously they're dry, so it's going to be easy to catch on fire. So yeah, so that little white flowers had some bubbles in there, so I was just pressing down on it just to get them to rise up. And I let my phone sit for a while so you guys want to see in the orange flowers that there's a bubble that just keep on rising up every 2 seconds, but it pops on its own. Hopefully you see it again because it just did it. But yeah, just letting it sit so that if there's any bubbles, it would rise and I can just pop it. Sometimes you just sit and watch. And I was talking, but another bubble just rose and popped on its own. And there's some bubbles at this side, but I'm just going to come in there and poke that real quick. I sprayed it with some alcohol just to get rid of some bubbles. And I sprayed it again to the side because I was worried that maybe there's some bubble over there as well. So I let it sit, and then I came back a few minutes later, and there's some bigger bubbles that came, and then some smaller one. And you can see that the resin is now becoming more sticky. That's because it's going to be starting to dry. So I sprayed a little bit more alcohol in there, and you can see that little tiny bubble keep on rising, so now I have to be watching it. So just making sure everything's good. And I think that I messed up because I kept on spraying the alcohol, so eventually, I don't know what happens inside, but you see that ruffiness? That's what happened because I guess the resin was hardening, and when I sprayed the alcohol, it just sit on top, and that's what happened. So I bought these scratchbook stickers from Amazon. I'll leave the link down below. So I was like, okay, maybe I can use this just to cover it up. So that's what I'm doing, cutting off some cute little sayings. So the first time I test these out, I used the back of this paintbrush to just rub it on there. So I thought that's probably what I should be doing to get it onto the resin piece. But you're going to find out very quickly that was a bad idea. That was a very, very bad idea. And I tried to use some alcohol to wipe it out of the mold, but it wasn't working. So I just had to let it be. And I tried to go over it again. So I was like, oh my God, I messed it up. You can't see the words very well. Oh, sorry about the noise. There's wind. The wind is blowing very hard outside right now. But that's how it's looking. And I'm going to do the same thing to love. No, for love, I decided to trace the letters. And that one kind of turned out better. And I tried to wipe it off with my hand. Clearly that did not work. I just used my nails to clean that off. So I decided to trace it with the back of the paintbrush. And that kind of worked. You guys are going to see. But what you have to do is just rub the back of it, and it's just going to transfer on there. So you don't have to be doing all of this foolishness that I'm doing right here. So now I'm just flipping it over to see, and I realized that there's a bubble that got trapped in the stem of a rose. So now I'm just using my stick to poke at it to get it out, because the next layer of resin I'm going to use it to kind of tase it to get so that you don't see it when everything is cured. You guys are going to see what I mean in a sec. I'm just checking the bubbles, making sure everything is good. I'm hiding everything. So now this is how you do it. All you have to do is just use your hand to just rub it so that it can just transfer onto anything. And this is how it looks. This one looks better than the rest of everything else. But yeah, looks pretty cool. So now I'm just going to pour down more resin. And hopefully everything looks good. One can only pray. So now I'm mixing up my resin. And I'm going to be pouring it down. Remember that there was a bubble that got trapped underneath one of the rose stems. So when I poured in the resin, now it's time for me to start poking at it so that the resin can get in between where the bubble was so that you don't see it anymore. You can see over in the corner that there's a bubble that was rising and it's popping on its own. And there's a bubble like right underneath the other stem. But this is how you do it. Just keep poking at it until all of the air bubble comes out, and then eventually you don't see that there was a bubble anymore. And then it's a piece of resin that got trapped in there, so let's remove it out. So now I'm just going over everything, making sure that all of the bubbles are gone. And this one, the bubble kept on rising, so I had to just press down on it for like a good minute until it just stopped. So that's what I was doing right there. And I'm just gonna let everything dry for 24 hours. But before that, you can obviously see that there's a ton of little tiny bubbles. So I just sprayed a little bit of some alcohol again. And the bubble at the corner is still rising. It's still underneath there, so I had to keep on poking at it until I got it out completely. But this is how it looks. It looks pretty cool. Okay, so now it's in the morning. You can see that there's a ton of bubble that got trapped. So now with my little stick, I'm trying to pop all of the bubbles because we're going to be repeating the same step, pouring in another layer of resin and then keep poking at it until all of the air bubbles underneath it get out, because obviously we don't want bubbles to be in it. It's just going to look a hot mess. So that's what I'm doing right there. Removing any extra piece of resin. And there is, I can't believe that there's so much bubble. I sprayed it after with more alcohol. I went over it with my lighter, but the bubble still came. So there's not much I can do about it. This is an easy fix. So yeah. But this is how it looks. I'm just going to give you guys a quick little close-up. I'm trying to clear everything off of it because I'm going to be adding on the resin and I don't want anything to get trapped underneath it. I'm just making sure that I clear it up properly and everything looks good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, so this is going to be the final layer of resin. Just pouring it down. I'm going to get rid of all of those little bubbles. Okay, so we can stop now and just poke at it. Poke at it so the bubbles all rise out so you don't see it. There's a bubble right there. No, you can't really see it. And you can poke at this one as well until it's disappeared. This one. Okay. Finally, these two are the last ones. Alright, so this is how it looks. Doesn't look like there's bubbles there. Almost. If you're just looking at the ones that got trapped. Now we can just pour in the final layer because it can still be filled a little bit more up to the top. You can see that's where the flowers are sticking out. We're going to have to actually sand those bad boys down. And then just spray it. Okay, so this is the final part. Now it has been 24 hours. You guys saw that big giant bubble that just ruined everything. So I'm gonna have to sand down the top. Ugh, I'm so mad. Like I was sitting there watching it and just popping the bubble as it rolls, and it kept on coming one after another, and then the resin started to harden, and then it just stayed. But it looks good. Since this video is already so long, stay tuned for part 2 because the sides and the back is very matted. So I need to add a clear coat of resin. I need to sand down the top to get rid of the giant bubble. So hopefully that would help everything look so much better. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.